All right, welcome back to the Press Box Podcast. In today's latest episode, which I might add is brought to you by our sponsor, Bonus Room Art. Head to bonusroomart.com today, check out the store, and also inquire about commissions there as well for some great artwork featuring primarily sports and movies, and follow them on Instagram at Bonus Room Art. But then again, today's episode, no guests today. We're going to talk a little bit about the NFL playoff picture to start out with here after Week 15 finished up. Playoffs are getting pretty clear, ever so clear, heading into the last 2 weeks, so we'll hit that. And then we'll talk about the controversial catch-no-catch rule that played a big part in Sunday's NFL game, specifically with the Patriots-Steelers. And then we'll jump into baseball a little bit, talk American League, specifically the Yankees and Angels. And finally, we'll touch on Kobe Bryant and his double jersey retirement ceremony, which happened last night as we were recording this, and a little bit about him, the Lakers, and some of the top NBA players of all time. So stay with us, and we will get right there after our intro music. Let's talk a little NFL to start with. We have Week 15 just ended, so that means there's 2 more weeks, okay? And the playoff picture is starting to take shape. How do we want to start this here? Let's go over what it looks like now, and we'll talk about some of these teams here. So in the AFC, we'll start with the AFC.
All right.
You got the Patriots.
Of course.
Clinched their division, of course. The Steelers clinched their division. The Jaguars have clinched a playoff spot.
Right.
Okay. And then you have the Chiefs.
We're on track to clinch the division.
Right, and they're looking at that 4th spot right now.
Right.
And then in the 5th spot, you've got the Titans and you've got the Bills right now.
Correct.
And then the Ravens have the same record as them, but they're on the outside looking in. So what are your overall impressions of that?
Well, I think, first of all, the AFC is more wide open from a standpoint of possibilities right now. Because, let's face it, the Patriots are in, the Steelers are in, the Jaguars are in. That's just a matter of seeding. Yeah. The Chiefs more than likely are going to be in.
I would say so.
They've swept the Chargers. They split with the Raiders. So they're pretty much going to win that division. But the 2 wildcard teams are wide open because, as you said, the Tennessee Titans are 8-6, the Buffalo Bills are 8-6, the Ravens are 8-6. The Chargers are 7-7. They're not completely out of it yet. The Titans, if they win out, can still win the division, assuming the Jaguars lose this week.
Right.
All right. If the Jaguars win this week, then I think they will pretty much
win
clinch
the division. They'd get to 11.
Correct, because the worst they could be would be 11-5. Right. That's correct. So yeah, I think that's the way it sets up. But really, the seeding is the key right now, because if the Steelers were to lose their last 2 games, or even if they lose one and the Jaguars win out, the Jaguars would leapfrog them for the 2nd seed by virtue of the fact that they beat the Steelers earlier this season. Right. The Patriots, by winning out, clinched the home field throughout the playoffs. But if they lose to the Bills or lose one more game, the Jaguars could
get the number 1 seed.
They could get the number 1 seed.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's pretty amazing when you think about it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the thing you look at in the AFC that's up for grabs are those last 2 spots, and you have, like you said, the 3 teams. I think going as an NFL fan, like I said, I don't have a diehard team, but just as someone who's a fan of the sport and likes to watch good football, I think the best, teams to get in there just from a competition standpoint and giving these 1 and 2 teams some trouble is the Ravens. They've done it before, especially coming through as a high seed. And then I think the Bills are better than the Titans personally. Like I don't think that. I know the Bills aren't going to be playing at home if they get in, but I still think that kind of what they bring is just to the table is better than the Titans. I don't trust Mariota at all. He's looked bad numerous times this year. I don't think the Titans are very good at all. I don't really know how they're 8-6, to be honest.
Well,
I know. Speaking to a large, I guess, Titans audience.
I think you make a good point. But I think the thing that the Titans do so well, if they have to, is they can run the football. Right? They play good defense and they run the football. And if they get in the playoff situation, that could help them quite a bit. The Bills, on the other hand,
they can
run it too, but they don't have a 1-2 punch like the Titans have. I mean, the Titans have DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry. I mean, two big, powerful running backs that if they get the lead on you, they could just wear you down with them.
Who do you trust more in a playoff game, though? Tyrod Taylor or Mariota?
Oh gosh, that's a good question.
If you had to pick one of them, not saying I trust either.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I mean, I don't think I would trust either one of them, to be honest with you, because neither one of them have been there. Yeah. And I guess if I had to lean towards one, I'd lean towards Tyrod Taylor, only because he seems to be a little more effective than Mariota is. So Mariota does some dumb things, you know.
Yeah, well, and like I said, the Bills are 8-6. Okay, and then that counts that game they basically gave away to the Chargers by starting Peterman.
That's right.
Who threw 5 interceptions in the first half.
That's right.
So I'm not sure they would have won that game if they would have started Taylor, but I mean they would have been more competitive, I think. So you could be looking at a 9-5 team there as well.
You could be.
Really.
That's exactly right. But I think, to go back to what you mentioned earlier, I think the two teams that I would say have a chance to make some noise from the standpoint of beating either the Steelers or the Patriots would be the Jaguars and the Ravens.
Right.
And the reason I say that, as you said, the Jaguars have a very strong defense. I mean, in fact, I think they lead the league in all defensive categories: sacks, turnover differential. I mean, they're awesome.
I'm all in on the Jaguars. Yeah.
And their running game is powerful. And you know, I read an article today that, believe it or not, Blake Bortles has the best QBR rating of any quarterback in the NFL in the month of December. So he is coming on. I mean, I know sounds stupid.
It does.
You know, that's like picking your statistics to mention or to make a case for what you want. Right. But the fact of the matter is, the guy has played lights out in December. Yeah. If he continues to do that with their running game and their defense, hey, the Jaguars could make it to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think when people just hear that name, based on what he's shown us, they automatically just think, oh, that's terrible. But yeah, he stepped up his play for sure the past couple of weeks. It'll be interesting. Like I said, I guess as a fan of the sport, I'd like to see the Jaguars get into the Super Bowl, but then it's going to be tough to beat some of these top teams. But if you take a look at the NFC real quick here.
Yeah, let's do that.
Like as you said earlier, not as wide open in terms of possibilities, but I think overall maybe a stronger conference. We've got the Eagles 12-2; they have won their division.
Right.
You have the Vikings who won their division at 11-3. The Rams have not won their division yet, but they're 10-4, looking like they will.
Right.
And then you have the Saints and Panthers. Figure both those teams are going to get in at 10-4 right now, most likely. And really, it's that last spot that's more so up for grabs in the NFC. We have the Falcons at 9-5. Then you have the Seahawks at 8-6 and the Cowboys at 8-6.
Yeah, as a matter of fact,
and the Lions too.
The Lions too. The NFC is much more cut and dry. You only have. You're exactly right. Right now, your wild card, as of today, are the Panthers and the Falcons. The Falcons control their own destiny. If the Falcons win out, which means they have to play the Saints and the Panthers the last 2 weeks. If they win out, they win the division. Okay, so that pretty much leapfrogs them over the Panthers and the Saints, and then puts the Panthers and the Saints in a wild card situation. Yeah. The Lions, the Cowboys, and the Seahawks are the only 3 other teams in the NFC that have a mathematical chance of making the playoffs. Right. And the Lions, even though it's not a great chance, have the best of the other 2 because they hold the tiebreakers over the Seahawks and the Cowboys.
Mathematically, are the Packers out?
The Packers are eliminated. The Falcon win last night over the Buccaneers eliminated the Packers. In fact, the Packers put Aaron Rodgers back on IR today. Okay. So they know they're done and they're out. So really, the Lions, the Seahawks, and the Cowboys, all sitting at 8-6, would have to win out and be 10-6 and hope that the Panthers and the Falcons lose. The Falcons at least lose a couple games, and the Panthers lose both their games as well. So I think you've already, as you said, we've seen our teams. It's just a matter of seeding there as well. The Eagles have clinched a first-round bye, so they're going to either be the 1 or the 2 seed. The Vikings obviously are in, just a matter of, depends on where, and the same with the Rams. So it is much more cut and dry, but I like what you said there before. The NFC is wide open. Yeah. I mean, when you look at those teams, there's no team that you can look at and say, hey, this team is going to be hard to beat in the playoffs.
It's the opposite of the AFC in that the 1 and 2 seeds right now in the NFC, you have Wentz getting hurt, so you have Foles, and then you have Case Keenum who's unproven. So it's almost like the 3 and 4 seeds and the wild cards who have better quarterbacks, that have proven themselves, or I think maybe a little more favor than the 1 and 2 seeds. Where in the AFC you have the 1 and 2 seeds with the traditional powerhouses.
And to piggyback on what you just said, isn't it interesting that we're saying here that the 1 and 2 seeds in the NFC both have backup quarterbacks leading them. Okay, yeah. But the 5th and 6th seeds have 2 quarterbacks that have been to the Super Bowl.
Right.
So I mean, when you look at that, you think, hey, those guys, if they get in, are going to be very difficult to beat because they've been there. Right. You know, they know exactly what it takes to be successful. But while we're at it, I mean, so we've pretty much cleared up. We've pretty much talked about the playoffs, and I think we know where that's going.
It'll be a fun last 2 weeks.
Let's go back to last Sunday, a couple days ago, the Steeler-Patriot game, which by all means was the game of the year when you look at big games, right? You know, I'm sick and tired of hearing about the Pittsburgh Steelers, okay? I mean, all I hear is the Steelers have a chance to beat the Patriots. The Steelers they had the Patriots beaten Sunday. They were up by 11 with 3.5 minutes left, and, you know, to quote Nigel from The Replacements, they pissed it away at the track, okay?
Yeah, good movie, The Replacements.
Yes, excellent movie. But in fact, one of our shows someday ought to be great sports movies, all right? Great football and sports movies, but that's another topic. But how do you let that game slip away? I mean, how do you have to know from all your experiences playing the Patriots that you can't play the Patriots for 57 minutes or 59 minutes and 30 seconds. You have to play them till the clock is at 0, all right? And they let it get away. I mean, I don't understand how they did that.
And looking at the Steelers' defense, obviously they've got some injuries. Hayden was out and Shazier is out. Right. But, you know, the idea is, and what you hear about what the Patriots do is you try to take away the best thing of the opposing team's offense.
Right.
Well, that would be Gronkowski.
Right.
And they're letting him run all over the place. Whether they were playing zone, he was finding opening the seams. Yeah, I mean, I get that they have other weapons, but don't let him beat you, right?
Exactly.
Like, take him away and fend for yourself as far as the other guys. Because, I mean, he was all over the place there. And once you get on the goal line, you can't. It's very hard to stop that fade to him with your corners.
You can't stop Gronkowski. I mean, when you have corners that are 5'10" or 6 foot, and you got Gronkowski that's like 6'5", it's impossible to stop him. And I don't understand why they weren't bracketing him. I mean, you know, they need to have 2 guys on him. You can't blitz Brady, all right? So right away you know that. You cannot blitz Tom Brady. If you do, you got single coverage in the back in the secondary, and Brady will find the open guy and he'll beat you. You beat Tom Brady by pressuring him with your front 4 and putting him on the ground. They did that. The Steelers put him on the ground quite a bit Sunday, and that's why they were ahead in that football game. But when it got to crunch time, they could not stop Gronkowski, and they couldn't get to Brady soon enough to prevent him from making those throws. Yeah. So that's the only way you're going to beat Tom Brady, and the Steelers were not able to get it done.
That's why I like the Jaguars too, because they have that D-line, Calais Campbell this year playing really well, and then they have 2 good corners also, with Ramsey and I forget the other guy's name off the top of my head, but they have 2 of the better corners in the league. But so we know how you feel about the Steelers, but some would argue that they won that game, okay? Because in the final seconds they did, quote unquote, catch a touchdown pass to put them ahead, which is obviously reviewed and overturned by the league, which again brings up that catch no catch rule. I guess I'll let you start and what you think about that, but go ahead.
I think it's ridiculous. Okay. I mean, this catch rule all came about. I want to say 2012. I may have my year wrong, but it was the opening game of the year. The Lions were playing the Bears in Soldier Field. The Calvin Johnson catch. Remember that?
Yes.
He caught the ball. He put it on the ground to balance himself in the end zone, and he lost control of it. And they overturned it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that led to
the Dez Bryant thing.
Exactly. The Dez Bryant thing in 2014, which was a catch. Yeah. Okay. And then all this other problems we're having today. All right. So, the Steeler receiver caught the ball on the 1-yard line, realized he wasn't in the end zone. Before he was touched, he reached out across the goal line, and the ball hit the ground, and before he was able to land on top of it, it moved just a little bit. All right. By rule, that is not a catch because the rule states that you have to control the football all the way to the ground and through the catch to make it a legal catch. You cannot lose control of it. But it's ridiculous. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, we've talked about this ad nauseum. I mean, if you're a runner, all you have to do is put the ball across the goal line. All right. If you're a receiver, why can't it be the same way? I mean, why does it have to be different?
Yeah, it's a good question, and let's make this clear. That was the correct call under the way the rule is stated.
Correct.
What you just said. So
it
wasn't an incorrect call.
No, it was not incorrect.
Yeah, I think the argument is that why is that rule in place?
Correct.
Yeah, I think that one way to look at it is just like when you're watching the game on TV, just the common sense rule. Like if you see that, just what's your first reaction? Yeah, that was a catch, or it looked like a catch. It was a catch. So I think that is one way to look at it. But if you're going to actually review it like the refs are and look at everything in slow motion, I don't see why if the receiver has the ball in his possession and he gets his feet down and doesn't, as they say, survive the ground, he has control of the ball with feet down in the end zone.
Right.
Like you said, as a runner, that would be a touchdown. Where the receiver has to survive the ground for it to be in. I'm not.
Well, I'm gonna make it really simple for all you listeners out there, and I hope Roger Goodell and the competition committee is listening to us right now because I'm gonna make it real simple. When you and our producer were little boys, okay, and we used to play catch, right? What did we do? I would throw you the football, and we would count how many catches you made. Correct? If you caught the ball, it was a catch. If you dropped the ball and it hit the ground, it wasn't a catch. Correct? Whether you bobbled it, whether you knocked it up in the air 5 or 6 times, as long as you caught it and controlled it before it hit the ground, it was a catch. That's the simplest way to do it, okay? Is that I don't care if a receiver hits the ground on his back and bobbles the ball in the air. As long as he controls it before that ball hits the ground, it should be a catch. I mean, would you not agree with that?
Yeah. The only thing... Yeah, as long as he has the ball. If you're getting into the territory where he comes down with control and the ball like hits the ground and it's not in his possession, I don't think.
Well, but go back to
if it starts falling out before he hits the ground.
Go back to the Des Bryant play from 2014. I don't think that ball ever hit the ground. If I remember correctly, he caught the ball, rolled over a guy, the ball bounced up in the air, and then he ended up catching it, and they called it. They said he did not have control of the football when he hit the ground.
Yeah.
See, so I mean, I don't think it's. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I just think it's too nebulous. I mean, it shouldn't be that difficult to figure out.
Yeah.
So
I mean, especially when you have games like this that are big time games deciding things, I think that it has to be a little more clear.
But let's say this though, in all fairness to the rule, right? The Steelers still had an opportunity to win that game, right? Okay, the Steelers still had an opportunity to win the game, and. Roethlisberger pretended he was going to spike the ball. And
another thing,
from what I've heard, that he wanted to spike it. And then in his helmet, he heard his sideline say, don't spike it, don't clock it, okay? So he tried to make a play with the ball, and he tried to run a slant pattern, which is exactly what the Seahawks tried to do to the Patriots in the Super Bowl a couple years ago. The ball got batted up in the air, the Patriots intercepted it, and the game was over. What he should have done is run a fade route, try to throw something to the corner of the end zone. All right, that would have been probably a better opportunity because then even if you don't catch it, you have a chance to kick the field goal to go into overtime.
Right.
So, well, I mean, it was definitely a botched situation by the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, some things never change. The Steelers can't beat the Patriots late in the season, but they may meet again, and at that point, we'll see if they have what it takes. But so football. Week 15 just ended. Baseball, the hot stove season is just beginning.
Yes, it is.
So they had the winter meetings in Orlando that wrapped up at the end of last week.
Right.
And we're going to talk some more baseball, specifically a few teams in the next podcast. But for now, the big news out of the winter meetings was the Giancarlo Stanton trade.
Right.
Where a lot of factors involved. You had Jeter essentially trading him to the Yankees, who obviously he played for. So there's some talk there that he's trying to help the Yankees, but really the Marlins were trying to dump salary, and the Yankees got a steal, and they didn't have to give up a whole lot for him. It was
Starlin Castro,
and then some mid-level prospects, right? So you take that deal all the time.
And not only that, I think the Marlins actually picked up about $30 million in the salary.
Yeah, they picked up a lot of it.
Yeah,
or not a lot of it, but some of it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, you look at the Yankees lineup next year. How do you see that playing out? What is your ideal order for them next year?
Well, I mean, we talked a little bit about this before we started the podcast, and I like what you said. I mean, I like Gardner leading off, Gregorius batting second, Stanton batting third, Judge batting fourth, Sanchez batting fifth, and Greg Bird batting sixth. Right. And then you can 7, 8, 9. You can do whatever you want. Right. I mean, you got Hicks, right. You got some guy playing second base, some guy playing third base. Doesn't matter who it is. You mix and match them. Okay. Right. But that's a pretty formidable order. Yeah. I mean, I would love to be Giancarlo Stanton hitting behind Gregorius and in front of Judge and Sanchez. Yeah. I mean, you can walk him all you want, but you're going into dangerous territory. And I also read an article. I think Buster Olney wrote it, but basically saying that the Blue Jays, the Orioles, and the Rays really should consider going ahead and dumping salary because they just can't compete with the Yankees and the Red Sox right now.
Right. And I think another way he helps the Yankees is he's very similar to Judge, but he's also different than he's not exactly Ted Williams, but I think he's a better hitter than Judge is. I don't think that
I agree with you.
He's going to go into those deep slumps where I forget which month it was. Maybe it was July where Judge really had a terrible month where
I hit more baseballs than Judge did in July.
But if he has one of those again this year, you have Stan to pick up some of that slack.
Right.
Where, I mean, again, he hit 285 last year, I think, and I just think he has a better swing than Judge does. I think that. He's a better overall hitter, so that's why I say put him third, because the old adage is put your best hitter third, so I'd put him third. But what you brought up was the other teams in that division. I think this puts the Yankees ahead of the Red Sox. Now, you could argue the Red Sox have a better staff because they have Sale, who's obviously their ace, and they still have Price, who they have high hopes for still because he's under that big contract. And he has the potential to pitch like an ace. We all know the Yankees still need pitching, but I just think they got to the ALCS last year. They're a little ahead of the Red Sox right now. And then you look at the Orioles, they're talking about Machado being kind of available. That's something they could do to dump salary and get prospects. But, yeah, I think that obviously the division is down to those two teams. But
yeah, I agree with you. And I think, the Yankees, as much as they need pitching, if you stop and evaluate it for a minute, I mean, Tanaka pitched pretty well last year for a guy that supposedly has a partial tear of his ulnar collateral ligament. Right. All right, and he pitched really well in the playoffs. Right. They got Sonny Gray under contract for one more year.
They got Severino.
They got Severino, who came on last year and showed that he could be an ace. Okay, they re-signed Sabathia for a 1-year deal, so they got him. Yeah. So you got some pretty good starting pitching there if they'll all stay healthy and perform, and you've got arguably the best bullpen in the major leagues, top to bottom, long relievers to short relievers. Yeah. So, and then you throw into the fact that I think, if I've got my facts right, that Andrew Miller is going to be a free agent pretty soon. Okay? Yeah. And he's the guy that the Yankees traded to the Indians back in 2016. All right. So they could theoretically get him back if they as a free agent. And then you're talking about a bullpen that's lights out completely. I mean, when you've got Chapman to close it out and Miller to bridge from the starters to Chapman. Right. So, yeah, I think the Yankees, outside of the Astros, have to be considered the favorites in the American League right now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think the Astros are the favorites, but for obvious reasons, World Series champions.
Right.
Yeah, I think the Yankees are better than they were last year, and they took the Astros to Game 7 of the World Series last year. Of the ALCS.
Right.
So, yeah, and just checking on Miller here, he is... Yeah, he's under contract for next year. He'll be a free agent in 2019. Okay. So if the Indians are not contending around the trade deadline, he's going to be a name that they're going to put out there for sure.
Exactly. So, that's exactly right.
The Yankees, whether it's him, I think they'll be active at the trade deadline if they're trying to make that push, but he could be out there, that's for sure.
Here's what I would say. I would say the Yankees, I'm going to predict that the Yankees won't really need him at the trade deadline. Mm-hmm. So if you're Andrew Miller and you send signals that you'd like to be a Yankee again, just go ahead and let the Indians trade him to whoever they want to. Right. And then he becomes a free agent and the Yankees can sign him without giving anybody up, right? Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting year. I think the Yankees, as much as I don't like Brian Cashman, I don't like the way he handled Jeter when Jeter's contract was up a few years back. Yeah. I do not like what he did to A-Rod, all right? Yeah. But you got to give the guy credit. He went from an old baseball team in 2016 and 15 to a young contender in a matter of a year.
Yeah, they didn't have to do what the Astros and Cubs did and rebuild the thing for 3 and 4 years. It was pretty overnight.
Pretty much overnight. That's exactly right. And some of these guys like Judge and Sanchez, had a little bit of a showing at the end of 2016. Yeah. Gregorius came on. I mean, his first year filling in for Jeter was worthless. But the last two...
Judge was terrible.
Judge was horrible.
The month of September in 16, but...
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's come on. Yeah. So, I think the Yankees, you got to give the guy credit for what he's done. What
do you think about Aaron Boone going into the season?
Oh, gosh.
Maybe that says it all.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like this trend of hiring these guys that have never had any managerial experience. And,
they're just essentially puppets to the front office.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. The front office doesn't want to deal with a Showalter or a Girardi or,
Bobby Valentine.
Bobby Valentine, that's right.
Lupinella. We go on and on.
Yeah, the guys that have strong wills and have been around, they want these guys that they can dangle on a string and tell them to make these moves and that moves. And if it doesn't work out, you fire them, right? You go to somebody else. Right. So, that's just the way it is.
Let's stay in the American League for one more topic here. Ohtani, okay? The guy from the pitcher-hitter from the Japanese League signed with the Angels. He picked the Angels. From all of his West Coast suitors, he narrowed it down to the West Coast. But so apparently he's going to hit and pitch this year. Okay, right. So he's going to be in the rotation, and then on days he's not pitching, he's going to DH for them. That's the plan anyway right now. I'm assuming from what it sounds like when he does pitch, they'll use a traditional DH, I guess, and let him focus on pitching. But the Angels, I guess, expect big things out of him. And I just saw something today that if you're a fantasy baseball player out there. For fantasy baseball purposes, they're going to split him up into two people. So this is true. No, in drafting, you have to specify, I'm going to draft the pitcher Ohtani.
Or the hit.
Or, and there's both guys. Somebody else can draft the hitter Ohtani. So they're going to split up his stats that way. But I'm skeptical that somebody can do that in the major leagues, to be honest.
I am too. He may have been able to do that in Japan. But, Japanese baseball and American baseball is like FCS football and FBS football. They're competitive, but you put an FCS team against a Division I FBS team in football, and more than likely they're going to get beat. Yeah. And it's the same with the Japanese. They're good, don't get me wrong, but the guy's not going to be able to hit 280 and pitch lights out. You just can't do it.
A good comparison. It's the CFL to the NFL.
Exactly.
It's the second best league out there professionally, but what do you see? You see guys like Ichiro. You see the best talent wanting to come over here and prove themselves because they know this is the best baseball in the world.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
It's going to be a storyline for sure. You're going to hear people talk about it. And I'm interested to see how it goes. But just being around baseball and knowing it like I do, I just don't see it working, to be honest.
No, I agree with you.
So that's. I guess two of the bigger headlines. Like I said, we'll talk a little more National League specifically next podcast. Lastly, what did you want to touch on last night?
Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about last night at Staples Center in Los Angeles. Kobe Bryant. They retired not one but two of his numbers last night.
Right.
Most of our listeners probably know that when Kobe started out, he wore number 8, right. And then about halfway through his career, he made the switch to number 24. So last night, the Lakers retired both number 8 and number 24, which to me is quite an accomplishment for any player, obviously, to have two numbers retired.
Yeah, I can't think of another time that's happened.
I can't either. That's exactly right. But what I want to talk about is kind of get your take a little bit on where Kobe Bryant's place is in the game of basketball. I heard somebody say on TV today that he was a bridge between the Jordan Magic era and the LeBron era, if you want to look at it that way, okay? And the interesting thing is last night during the halftime ceremony, Magic Johnson, who is the director of basketball operations and vice president or president of operations, introduced him as the greatest Laker of all time, which I thought was interesting, coming from Magic Johnson, who most people would say is the greatest Laker of all time. So what's your? I know you love Kobe.
I'm a Kobe guy, so obviously I think he's the greatest Laker of all time. You could throw out any reasons. You get the 5 championships. Okay, you have the 81-point game. You have the three-peat. You have an 08 he won the MVP. I think it's just travesty that he came away with one MVP in his career. I think that in 06 he should have won it too. I think Nash won it that year.
Yeah,
not mistaken. Nash won back to back, but 06 he averaged I think it was almost 36 points a game. He should have won it that year. Single-handedly took them to the playoffs. The third all-time career NBA scoring. Just the game-winning shots he hit over and over and over. I don't see how you go against that. Now, I think Magic, I guess you could say, brought them back to prominence in the 80s from where they had been in the Jerry West days.
Right.
And him and Jordan did a lot for the league. And I guess you could say that bridge is a good way to kind of say that. But yeah, I think he's the best Laker of all time, no doubt.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. I think that when you throw that term around, it's kind of like throwing around who's the greatest Yankee of all time. You know what I mean?
Jeter.
Yeah. Well, there's so many of them, right? I mean, you got, from the Lakers standpoint, you got Will Chamberlain. I mean, Will Chamberlain was awesome. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, Elgin Baylor, Jerry West, Kobe Bryant. I mean, there are so many of them out there that you could pick from that it's hard to really put that tag on anyone. And really, when you look at Kobe, he won 5 championships, but the first 3 were with Shaq. Yeah. So, I mean, if Shaq wasn't there, would they have been able to win those championships? I don't know. Maybe they would have. And who knows how many they would have won if Shaq and Kobe were able to coexist. I mean, they might have won 6 or 7 just among the two of them.
Real quick here on the breakdown of the 8 and 24. All right, he played 20 seasons, 10 in each number.
Right.
Okay, and at number 8, he played 833 games, 19,755 points. Number 24, he played 733 games, 19,528 points. You're pretty much split right down the middle.
Right.
And you have the 3 championships with 8, 2 with 24, but the MVP with 24, and then you have 10 All-Stars at 24, 8 at 8. So pretty much to split his career in half, all the accolades, and they had no choice but to retire both, I think. I mean, our esteemed producer said it best. You can't go to a Lakers game in the future and see somebody wearing one of those numbers.
No, that's right.
So they had no choice.
They had no choice but to do both. And I think, when it comes down to who was the greatest basketball player of all time, I mean, you know me, I'm going to always side with Michael Jordan. I think Michael Jordan was the greatest. He won 6 championships. He won, I think, 5 Finals MVPs. 6? Did he win all 6? Okay. He won 2 MVP trophies, and he did it with a lot of different players. The first 3 was a certain group. The second 3 was another certain group. Yeah. He did have Scottie Pippen, but Kobe Bryant's got to be right up there with him. Yeah. I mean, Kobe Bryant has to be. LeBron, I don't think LeBron can sniff the shoes of Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. No. I mean, I don't care what these guys on ESPN say. He's a mercenary. I mean, he goes from team to team. Who knows where he's going to go next year? Right. All right. He lost Kyrie Irving. I'm going to say the Cavaliers won't even come out of the East this year. Okay. So he can't win it by himself like Michael Jordan could or like Kobe could. So I put him as the 3rd best player of all time. All right. Yeah. 5 MVPs in the finals.
No, overall 5 MVPs.
Oh, overall 5 MVPs, league MVPs.
6 finals MVPs.
All right, so that's even more impressive. Thank you, our producer cleared that up for us.
88, 91, 92, 96, 98.
There you go. Okay. 5 MVPs, 6 final MVPs. So yeah, I mean, to me, Michael Jordan's in a class by himself.
Yeah.
But LeBron, I'm tired of hearing about LeBron. Okay, he's an extremely athletic basketball player. A great basketball player, probably in the top 3, as A-Rod might say, arguably in the top 3, okay? But he's nowhere near Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant. I mean,
you figure the way his career plays out, he probably finishes 2nd all-time in scoring.
Probably.
I don't know that he catches Kareem. It depends on how long he plays or wants to play, but so he has that going for him. But I think
which is nice.
But as we sit here right now, he is. I want to say his record in finals is what, 3-4, 4-4,
3-4. Right. He lost 1 with Cleveland. He lost 1 with Miami, didn't he? He lost. He lost the first one with Cleveland his first time. He's lost 2 others with Cleveland. So he's 3-4. Yeah, he's 3-4.
He won. They won. He's 4-4. They won 3 in Miami, right?
No, I thought they only won 2 in Miami. They lost the first one. They lost the first year he was there. They lost to the Mavericks.
Yes.
All right. Then they won 2.
The lockout season. They won.
Then they won 2 in a row, and then they lost to the Spurs. So they were 2-2 in Miami.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then in Cleveland, he's lost 3. All right.
He lost.
He lost the first time he was with Cleveland.
Yeah.
And then he's lost 2 since then.
Right.
All right.
Yeah,
so he's 3-5 in the finals.
Hold on a second.
Our producer is working feverishly to.
Let's just go through this.
Let's go through.
07 loss.
He lost in 07.
Spurs.
Oh, here you go. All right, listen. All right. They lost in 07 to the Spurs.
All right.
All right.
11.
They lost 11 to the Mavericks.
Right.
And that was with the Heat. 07 was with the Cavs.
Right.
They won in 12 and 13.
Right.
They beat the Thunder in 12 and the Spurs in 13.
Right.
They lost to the Spurs in 14.
Right.
And
Cavs.
they won in 2016.
Right.
But they lost
to the
They
Warriors
lost
too.
in 2017.
and 2015.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 3-5.
Yeah.
Right. So all right. So LeBron is 3-5
Right.
in the finals.
Right.
Jordan is 6-0 in
Right.
the finals. Kobe is what?
5-2.
5-2. Okay, so right there, I mean, if you're the greatest basketball player of all time, you should not lose 5 finals.
No,
I mean, can you imagine Michael Jordan losing 5 finals? No. It's just not going to happen. No. Okay, so yeah, that's really not where we were going with this.
We kind of got off on
the LeBron train. That's exactly right. But Kobe Bryant, tremendous basketball player. I think I told you this once before. The thing that always impressed me about Kobe Bryant, okay. And this is what impressed me when we were talking about golf with Jordan Spieth. Why I think Jordan Spieth is the closest that'll ever come to Tiger,
right.
and why I think Kobe is the closest that'll ever come to Michael Jordan is he's an assassin. Yeah. Okay, in other words, he refuses to lose. He puts a team on his back. All right, and if he has to, he'll take every shot out there to make sure he wins the game. Right. LeBron's not like that. Okay, LeBron is more willing to pass it off. All right. Before he's willing to take the shot. And that's how Jordan was. I mean, Jordan was an assassin, okay? Yeah. And I just think, that's what puts Kobe Bryant in that class. And Magic Johnson may have been right. I mean, maybe he is the greatest Laker of all time when you consider what he's been able to accomplish over the course of his career and what he's been able to accomplish for the Laker franchise.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did think that it was interesting last night, though, of all the guys that were there when they were scanning the crowd. You had Jerry West there, you had Magic Johnson there, you had Derek Fisher there, you had all those guys. You know who wasn't there? Phil Jackson.
That's right. Well, he tweeted out his support. I don't know. He was probably in Montana in his cabin.
Smoking mescaline?
Peyote. That's you don't smoke.
You don't
peyote.
smoke peyote. That's right. Classic line, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't have the tweet right in front of me. But he did tweet something out. Maybe he couldn't be there. I don't know that. I'm sure he was either invited or he could have been if he wanted to.
Yeah,
but,
I'm sure he was invited.
I don't know that I'd read too much into that. But, yeah, I mean, that's obviously a kind of a big deal in NBA circles. I think where the Lakers are at this point with their talent level and with their outlook, that was their biggest night of the season. It involved a guy that wasn't playing for them.
Right, exactly. Right, and they had a great game. I mean, they lost to the Warriors in overtime, which, who would have expected it to be that close, really?
Yeah.
But,
all right, so that'll do it for today's episode. No guest today,
but today.
We will have a guest that'll introduce next week. Will be a regular contributor. We'll talk a little baseball, specifically the National League. And then after that, going forward, we're going to bring you definitely some more good guests, we think, right?
We are, and let's let our listeners know that by the time you hear this episode, it'll be right around Christmas time. I mean, Santa will be getting his sleigh together and his elves together at the North Pole.
A little before Christmas.
Before Christmas, but it'll be around that time. Yeah. And then our next guest, who will be a regular contributor, will be right around Christmas time. And then we may take a few days off for the holidays between Christmas and New Year's. And then when we come back, we'll have a lot to talk about. We'll have the NFL playoffs starting. We'll have the college football playoffs over and the championship game about to set up. We'll have some more baseball to talk about as the spring training will be right around the corner. So we've got a lot of sports to talk about coming up here once we get through the. In fact, you'll have a lot to tell us about because you're going to the Rose Bowl, aren't you?
That's right. Me and my producer Nathan will be at the Rose Bowl. Essentially in our backyard in Pasadena right now. So I'll give you the Rose Bowl review and kind of what we got from that game, and looking forward to the championship game.
That's exactly right. So we'll have a lot to talk about.
So yeah, some big things ahead for the Press Box podcast here. Again, make sure to subscribe on iTunes. And whether you're listening on iTunes or SoundCloud through the Fox Sports Knox app, be sure to subscribe on iTunes so you get the episodes at the very latest they're put up. And also follow us on Twitter at PressBox. That's at PressBoxPod on Twitter for all the latest there as well. So with that being said, for Joseph and Ralph, that'll be it for today's episode, and we are signing off.